What's up, everybody? It's Chef Joe here with Chef Gone Carnivore. Time for another video. Today I'm going to be sharing a French culinary technique that anyone who goes to culinary school learns, and that those of you who have watched cooking competition shows or documentaries about chefs have seen. The chef spooning butter over a piece of meat as he cooks it in a pan. That's a technique called arrosé. It's a French term, but basically it's just basting a piece of meat with butter in the last few minutes of cooking. And this is a great technique because it seals in moisture and makes that piece of meat juicier, and it also adds great flavor and more fat, which is something as carnivores we are always looking for ways to do that is delicious. So today we're going to be talking about how to butter baste a chicken breast. Now, this is a technique you can use with any piece of meat you're cooking, whether it's a steak or a pork chop or a fish fillet or a chicken thigh or a chicken breast. However it is you're cooking it, this is a great technique that you can use in lots of different ways. We're going to go over how to do it with just plain butter if you're on the stricter side of carnivore, but I'm also going to show you how you can add garlic and herbs to the butter to flavor it and add great flavor to the piece of meat that you're eating. That's how they do it in high-end restaurants, and I'm going to teach you how you can do it in your kitchen at home. Now, if you like videos like this, don't forget, give me a thumbs up as you're watching it. If you think it's great content, go ahead and subscribe, and you will be keyed in anytime I add videos like this in the future. Also note, I am doing carnivore. I've been doing it for about 9 months. I've lost 100 pounds doing carnivore, and I'm sharing my results on this channel and also cooking videos. So make sure you don't miss out on any of the stuff I post. But let's get back to cooking this piece of chicken. So I've got my chicken breasts here. They have been pulled out of the package, and now I just want to go ahead and take a paper towel and just dry any moisture on the surface of the meat off with this paper towel. This is easy to do, and it's the same thing we do no matter what kind of meat we are cooking, whether it's steak, pork chop, a salmon fillet, or a chicken breast in this case. Whatever it is, we just want to dry the moisture off of the surface. This allows us to get a much better sear and also prevents it from sticking to whatever it is we're using to cook it, whether it's a pan or a grill. A dry surface of meat is important. Now, when I take a look at these are pretty uniform in size from end to end. Sometimes in chicken you get huge lobes on one side and real thin tails. If that were the case, I could butterfly them, but these look pretty good, so I can go ahead and just trim off any bits on the outside. This isn't really necessary. You could leave it exactly how it is. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just kind of what I'm used to. I just kind of trim off and clean up the edges. Now, once these are ready to go, we want to go ahead and season them. I am just going to be seasoning them with salt because that is all I'm really using right now. But if you're using eating pepper as well on your diet, you could throw some pepper on there too. I like to give it a decent amount of salt on each side of the chicken breast. I use kosher salt, and that's about how much I put on both sides of my chicken breast. I'm going to turn my heat up to high under my pan, and then add that looks about a teaspoon of a high smoke point fat. So this is a point where you'd want to use beef tallow or clarified butter. I'm using bacon fat here, but you do not want to start with whole butter or else it will burn. So whatever fat you use, you just want to make sure it has a good smoke point. Any of the ones I listed would be great. I'm using bacon fat. So as my bacon fat melts, I just like to tilt the pan around and try to get a nice thin coating across the bottom. Once it's all melted and I've got a nice thin coating that stretches across the entire bottom of the pan, I pop it back on the heat and let it heat up until I start to see very light wisps of smoke coming up from the pan. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but that lets me know that the pan is hot enough. When it's hot enough, I'm going to go ahead and pop my piece of chicken in the pan, and then I like to just give it a little bit of a pressure from my tongs just to make sure it gets good contact with the pan. Now, we want the oil to be hot enough because that keeps the piece of chicken from sticking to the pan, and it also allows us to get a good sear. If you don't hear a loud sizzle when you pop it in, it wasn't ready yet. Let it get hotter and then try it again. Piece of chicken is going to cook on the first side for about 2 to 3 minutes. But basically you just want to cook it until you see a nice golden brown crust like this on that first side. Once you get that color, you're going to want to go ahead and turn your temperature down a bit to medium or so. You just don't want to burn the butter that we're about to put in the pan. So the chicken's going to finish cooking on this side, but because we want to baste it with butter as it finishes cooking, we're going to go ahead and add some butter now. You can add anywhere between 1 to 2 teaspoons of butter. It's kind of your preference, but you just pop the butter in there. You don't have to dice it up like I did. You could just put in a whole pad. It just takes a little longer to melt, that's all. But once it's melted, you go ahead and just tilt the pan slightly to one side so all the butter runs onto the edge, and you just use a spoon and scoop it up and pour it out over the chicken like that. It's quite easy, but you will feel a little more comfortable with it the more you do it. Now, if you decided you wanted more flavor and you are eating garlic and herbs, some carnivores do, you could add those while the butter is melting, and that will give the butter a really nice flavor while it cooks. Now, if you've ever been to a steakhouse at a nice place and you wonder how they get such delicious flavors on the steak as it cooks, this is how. They use garlic, they use herbs, it flavors the butter, and they baste it as it sears in the cast iron pan at the restaurant. So if you're looking for that, then you could add the garlic and herbs at this point. But if you don't eat garlic and herbs, feel free to just use plain butter. That's no problem. But either way, the technique is the same. Now, if your piece of chicken is thin enough, you may be able to cook it all the way through while it cooks in the pan. To know this, just use a thermometer, and if you're using chicken breast, you want it to get to 165 degrees in order to be safe to eat. If you can get there in the pan without doing it in the oven, that's fine, but if yours is a little thicker and you've got good color on both sides, you can finish it in the oven just like we do in restaurants with thicker pieces of meat. The chicken comes to within a couple degrees of 165. You can go ahead and pull it out because as it rests, it will continue to cook on the inside and reach that 165 degrees. So this one here got to 163 degrees, so I pulled it out. I'm going to go ahead and let it rest. I'm going to throw it on the cutting board to rest so that it's not still in this hot pan. And I'm going to make sure I save the butter that's in the bottom of this pan to pour over it before I eat it. There's a lot of flavor in there and I don't want to get rid of it. So it is done resting on this cutting board, and now let's go ahead and slice into it and see how we did. Now the great thing about this cooking method is it locks in the juices because we are pouring fat over it, and this chicken will be extremely moist. I'm going to go ahead and push and put some pressure on this meat so you can kind of see how much moisture is in this, but I don't recommend obviously doing that to the one you're going to eat because you want that moisture to stay inside of the meat. So check it out when I take this piece of chicken that I sliced and I squeeze it, and the moisture literally pours off of that piece of chicken. That's how moist the chicken is. So I'm going to go ahead and finish slicing this piece of chicken that we cooked. I'm going to fan it out, and I'm going to drizzle that beautiful butter, nice browned butter in the bottom of the pan over the chicken. That'll add great flavor. It'll also add some fat to a chicken breast that needs it, to be frank. And I'm going to enjoy this butter-basted chicken. Now hopefully this content was helpful. Hopefully you try to incorporate this technique in your everyday cooking. It will add lots of flavor and lots of moisture to what you're eating on the carnivore diet. Don't forget to subscribe if you like it, and also give me a thumbs up. It helps the channel out a lot, and it helps me know what kind of content the people who are watching enjoy. If you have questions about this or it's not quite working out right for you, make sure you leave me a comment. I'd be happy to talk you through it or to answer any questions or do troubleshooting as necessary. But once again, thank you for watching this video, and until next time.